I stood in the kitchen, soap bubbles covering my hands, while guests laughed in the ballroom above. They saw me as just another servant. Little did they know, my husband owned this entire mansion, and I was about to teach them the most expensive lesson of their lives. If you've ever been underestimated or treated unfairly, this story will hit close to home. Make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell because stories like this remind us that appearances can be deceiving. Let's dive in. My name is Aliyah, and 2 years ago, I married the love of my life, Logan. Most people know him as the billionaire tech entrepreneur who built his empire from nothing. What they don't know is that he's also the kindest, most down-to-earth person you'll ever meet. Maybe that's why we clicked so well when we first met at a small coffee shop downtown, where he was sitting alone with his laptop, just another guy trying to get work done. Logan never flaunted his wealth, and neither did I. Even after we got married, I preferred to stay out of the spotlight. While he attended business meetings and charity events, I was content working at the local animal shelter, doing what I loved without any cameras or reporters following me around. It was a simple life, and we both loved it that way. But tonight was different. Tonight was the annual charity gala at our mansion, and Logan had been planning this event for months. The proceeds would go to several children's hospitals across the state, and he was genuinely excited about making a difference. The irony wasn't lost on me that hundreds of wealthy people would be gathering in our home, and most of them had no idea who I was. That's when I got an idea. Call it curiosity, call it a social experiment, but I wanted to see how these people really behaved when they thought no one important was watching. So I made a decision that would change everything. I decided to attend the gala, but not as Logan's wife. I would go as one of the catering staff. I know it sounds crazy, but think about it. How often do we get the chance to see people's true colors? I borrowed a simple black uniform from our housekeeper, pulled my hair back into a neat bun, and practiced my best invisible server smile. Logan was running late from a business meeting, so he had no idea what I was planning. Perfect. The transformation was remarkable. With my hair pulled back, minimal makeup, and the standard catering uniform, I looked like any other member of the staff. I slipped into the kitchen through the service entrance, and none of the real catering team questioned my presence. Everyone was too busy preparing for the evening's festivities. As the guests began arriving, I grabbed a tray of champagne glasses and made my way into the ballroom. The sight took my breath away, even though I'd seen these decorations being set up all week. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over the marble floors, and fresh flowers adorned every table. It was absolutely stunning, and for a moment I felt proud that this was our home. But that feeling didn't last long. As I moved through the crowd, offering champagne to the guests, I started to notice things. The way certain people looked right through me, as if I didn't exist. The way they would take glasses without even acknowledging my presence, continuing their conversations as if I were invisible. "Excuse me, miss?" called out a woman in a bright red dress. Her name was Catherine, and I recognized her from the society pages. "This champagne is too warm. Can't you people do anything right?" I smiled politely and apologized, offering to get her a fresh glass. She rolled her eyes and turned back to her conversation, dismissing me with a wave of her hand. I bit my tongue and walked away, reminding myself that this was exactly what I wanted to observe. But the real show was just beginning. Enter Priscilla, the event organizer and self-proclaimed Queen Bee of the charity circuit. She was a tall, imposing woman in her 50s, wearing a gold dress that probably cost more than most people's cars. She had this way of looking at people that made you feel about 2 inches tall, and unfortunately, she had her sights set on me. "You there?" she called out, pointing a perfectly manicured finger in my direction. "What's your name?" "Aliyah," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "Well, Aliyah, I hope you're better at serving than the rest of this amateur staff. Do you see how slowly these appetizers are coming out? It's absolutely unacceptable. This is a high-class event, not some backyard barbecue." I nodded and assured her that I would do my best, but Priscilla wasn't finished with me. For the next hour, she found fault with everything I did. The way I carried the tray, the way I approached guests, even the way I stood when I wasn't serving. It was clear she enjoyed having someone to boss around. The other guests seemed to take their cue from Priscilla. If she treated the staff poorly, then it must be acceptable behavior. I watched as perfectly educated, supposedly refined people transformed into entitled bullies the moment they thought no one important was watching. "This shrimp is cold," complained a man in an expensive suit. "Don't you people know how to keep food warm? I'm not paying good money to eat cold appetizers." I wanted to tell him that he wasn't paying for anything, that this was a charity event, but I held my tongue. Instead, I apologized and offered to get him a fresh plate. He grabbed it from my hands without a word of thanks. As the evening progressed, the treatment got worse. Guests would interrupt me mid-sentence when I was trying to serve them. They would make jokes about the staff's intelligence, assuming we couldn't understand their humor. Some even made comments about how people like us should be grateful for the work. The breaking point came when one of the servers called in sick at the last minute. Priscilla was furious, and she needed someone to cover the kitchen duties. Guess who she chose? "Aaliyah," she announced, "you're going to have to help with the dishes. We're short-staffed and someone needs to keep the kitchen running smoothly." I stared at her for a moment, processing what she was asking. Here I was, in my own home, being ordered to wash dishes by a woman who didn't even know she was standing in my ballroom. "I was hired to serve," I said carefully, "not to wash dishes." Priscilla's eyes narrowed. "Listen, sweetheart. You'll do whatever I tell you to do. This is a professional event, and I won't have some part-time server questioning my authority. Now get to that kitchen and start cleaning, or you can find yourself another job." The ballroom fell silent around us. Other guests had stopped their conversations to watch the confrontation. I could feel their eyes on me, waiting to see how I would respond. Some looked amused, others looked uncomfortable, but no one spoke up. I took a deep breath and walked to the kitchen. Not because I was intimidated, but because I wanted to see how far this would go. I wanted to see just how cruel people could be when they thought there would be no consequences. The kitchen was a disaster. Plates were piled high in the sink, and the industrial dishwasher was running non-stop. I rolled up my sleeves and started washing, my hands quickly becoming raw from the hot water and harsh soap. Through the service window, I could see the guests laughing and dancing, completely oblivious to the work being done to make their evening perfect. But Priscilla wasn't done with me yet. She kept coming back to the kitchen, finding new ways to assert her dominance. She criticized my dishwashing technique, complained about the speed of service, and made snide comments about my ability to handle real work. "You know," she said during one of her visits, "I've been organizing events like this for 20 years. I can spot the troublemakers from a mile away. You have attitude problems, and that's not going to work in this business." I continued washing dishes, letting her words wash over me like the soapy water. She had no idea that she was talking to the woman who lived in this house, who had personally approved every detail of this event, who could have her banned from every charity function in the city with a single phone call. But the real test of my patience came when Catherine, the woman in the red dress, decided to join Priscilla in the kitchen. She was slightly drunk and feeling bold. "Oh, this is rich," she laughed, looking at me scrubbing plates. "Look at little Miss Server, relegated to dish duty. I bet you never imagined you'd be doing this when you woke up this morning." I looked up at her, my hands still in the soapy water. "Actually, I find honest work quite fulfilling." Catherine's face twisted into a sneer. "Honest work? Is that what you call this?" "Sweetheart, this isn't honest work. This is what people do when they don't have any other options. This is what people do when they're not smart enough or pretty enough to do anything else." Her words hit me like a physical blow, not because they hurt me personally, but because I realized she actually believed what she was saying. She genuinely thought that a person's worth was determined by their job title or their bank account. "You know what I think?" Catherine continued, emboldened by my silence. "I think you're probably some college dropout who couldn't make it in the real world. I bet you're living paycheck to paycheck, probably can't even afford a decent apartment. People like you are a dime a dozen." Priscilla laughed and nodded in agreement. "She's absolutely right. I've seen hundreds of girls like you come and go. No ambition, no drive, no future. This is probably the best job you'll ever have." I stood there, my hands dripping with dishwater, and I made a decision. I was done with this experiment. I was done being treated like dirt in my own home. I was done watching these people reveal their true, ugly nature. But before I could say anything, I heard a familiar voice calling from the ballroom. "Excuse me, has anyone seen my wife? I'm looking for Aaliyah." My heart skipped a beat. Logan was here. Priscilla and Catherine exchanged confused glances. They had no idea what was happening, but they could sense that something was about to change. "Your wife?" Priscilla called out, walking toward the ballroom. "Sir, I don't know what you're talking about. There's no one here by that name except for one of the servers." I heard Logan's footsteps approaching the kitchen, and I knew the game was about to end. I dried my hands on the towel and turned to face Catherine and Priscilla, who were looking more confused by the second. "Actually," I said, my voice steady and calm, "there is someone here by that name." Logan appeared in the kitchen doorway, his eyes immediately finding mine. He looked confused, taking in my uniform and the dishwater on my hands. For a moment, he didn't understand what he was seeing. "Aaliyah," he said, his voice filled with concern. "What are you doing in the kitchen? Why are you dressed like that?" I smiled at my husband, the man who had built an empire but still looked at me like I was the most important person in the world. "Hello, darling. I was just getting to know our guests a little better." The realization hit Logan like a lightning bolt. His expression shifted from confusion to understanding to barely controlled anger. He looked at Priscilla and Catherine, who were standing frozen in the doorway. "Let me get this straight," he said, his voice dangerously quiet. "You've had my wife washing dishes in our own kitchen?" Priscilla's face went white. "Your wife? But she's just a server. She's part of the catering staff." "No," Logan said, stepping closer to me and taking my soapy hands in his. "She's Aaliyah Morrison, my wife of 2 years and the co-owner of this mansion. She's also one of the kindest, most intelligent women you'll ever meet, though I suspect you've already missed that opportunity." The silence in the kitchen was deafening. Catherine's face had gone from red to pale green, and Priscilla looked like she might faint. I could hear the murmur of conversation dying down in the ballroom as other guests began to sense that something significant was happening. Logan turned to address the growing crowd in the doorway. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you to meet my wife, Aaliyah. She decided to experience tonight's event from a different perspective, and I think we've all learned something valuable about ourselves." The crowd parted as Logan led me into the ballroom, still holding my hands. I could see the recognition dawning on face after face. The woman they had ignored, dismissed, and humiliated was the lady of the house. Aaliyah wanted to see how our guests would treat someone they perceived as beneath them, Logan continued, his voice carrying across the silent ballroom. "I'm disappointed to say that many of you failed that test spectacularly." Priscilla stumbled forward, her face desperate. "Mr. Morrison, I had no idea. If I had known who she was, I would never have. I was just trying to keep the event running smoothly." "Exactly," I said, finally finding my voice. "You treated me poorly because you thought I was just a server. But here's the thing, Priscilla. I am just a server tonight. The only difference is that I have the privilege of choice. The woman who would have been washing those dishes, if I hadn't been there, deserves the same respect you would give me now." Catherine tried to slip away in the crowd, but Logan's voice stopped her. "Catherine, I believe you had some things to say about people like my wife, about college dropouts and people without ambition. For the record, Aaliyah has a master's degree in social work from Harvard, and she chooses to work at an animal shelter because she believes in making a difference." The shame on Catherine's face was almost painful to watch, but I wasn't done yet. "The business deal your husband has been trying to negotiate with my company?" Logan continued. "Consider it canceled. We prefer to work with people who share our values." The ripple effect was immediate. Other guests who had been rude to me throughout the evening began to panic, realizing that their behavior might have consequences. Some tried to approach me with apologies, but the damage was done. "I want everyone to understand something," I said, addressing the room. The way you treated me tonight is the way you treat people every day. Your server at restaurants, your housekeeper, your doorman, they all deserve the same respect you would give to anyone else. Their jobs don't make them less valuable as human beings." Logan squeezed my hand. "The charity we're supporting tonight helps children who come from all backgrounds. Some of their parents might be servers, dishwashers, or cleaners. How can we claim to support these children while looking down on their families?" The evening took on a completely different tone after that. Some guests left early, too embarrassed to stay. Others approached me with genuine apologies, and I could see that they were really thinking about their behavior. A few even shared their own stories of times when they had been treated poorly because of their appearance or job. Priscilla lost her position as the preferred event organizer for the charity circuit. Word traveled fast in their social circles, and her reputation never recovered. Catherine's husband's business suffered significant losses when other companies, following Logan's lead, decided they didn't want to be associated with that kind of attitude. But the most important change was in the people who genuinely learned from that night. I received dozens of letters from guests who said the experience had made them rethink how they treated service workers. Some even started volunteering at local charities, working alongside people they might have previously looked down upon. As for me, I learned something too. I learned that my privilege comes with responsibility. I learned that sometimes you have to be willing to step out of your comfort zone to create change. And I learned that the most powerful weapon against prejudice is simply showing people their own behavior reflected back at them. The next morning, Logan and I sat in our kitchen, drinking coffee and reading the news coverage of the event. The story had taken on a life of its own, with people sharing their own experiences of being judged based on appearance or job title. "Do you regret it?" Logan asked, looking at me over his coffee cup. I thought about it for a moment. "No," I said finally. "I regret that it was necessary, but I don't regret doing it. Those people needed to see themselves clearly, and sometimes that requires a mirror." Logan smiled and reached across the table to take my hand. "I'm proud of you," he said. "You could have revealed who you were the moment someone was rude to you. You could have used your position to avoid the discomfort, but you chose to experience what millions of people experience every day. That's the thing about privilege. It's not just about having money or status. It's about having choices. I had the choice to walk away from that kitchen whenever I wanted. I had the choice to reveal my identity and stop the mistreatment. Most people in service jobs don't have those choices. This story reminds us that we never know who we're really talking to. Treat everyone with kindness and respect because you never know when karma might come calling. If this story resonated with you, smash that like button, share it with someone who needs to hear this message, and don't forget to subscribe for more incredible stories. What would you have done in Aaliyah's situation? Let me know in the comments below.